Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to episode 31 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest. And today, we're going to talk about Major League Baseball. The trade deadline yesterday was one of the craziest in Major League Baseball history. And joining me today to talk about the American League East and all the moves contending teams made in that division is Hank Indictor, the host of Hitting for the Cycle on Review and Preview Sports. Hank, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you joining me.
Hey, Walt, thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure talking baseball with you. How's it going?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. So the Red Sox are currently in first place in the AL East at 63-42. But let's talk about the team on your hat. They made some big moves this week, looking to add some lefties in their lineup. In comes Joey Gallo. In comes Anthony Rizzo, who you know I wanted the Red Sox to get. Just talk about your new look lineup right now with the New York Yankees for the second half of the season.
Let me just say right off the bat, this lineup is instantly upgraded from what it's been all season. Like, what's the one thing I've been complaining about all year long is we're too right-handed heavier than, you had Brett Gardner playing a lot of games in the outfield. I'm going to say one thing right now, too. I think Joey Gallo, as much as I love Gardy, is probably going to spell the end of his time as a Yankee because this guy can play a lot of different spots in the outfield. Very versatile. The only downside, of course, about getting Joey Gallo, in my honest opinion, is the average is too low and the strikeouts are too high. So, again, I'm not exactly talking about the next Ted Williams here, but I do think he'll provide a little bit of stability to this lineup, and I think especially in the field. And Anthony Rizzo, getting him at first base, that was not something that I saw coming. And make no mistake, I always liked the guy. He's a good clutch hitter. He's been with Chicago for many years. He's a team leader, and I think he can definitely help the Yankees out more than just on the field. But with that being said, it's another lefty bat in the lineup, and now it's more balanced than it was all season, if I'm being honest right now. And you know what? I think in addition to that, I'm sure he's going to re-sign, and I think he'll also provide some stability at first base for the next, maybe 3-4 years as well.
Yeah, one of the underrated storylines here, and I don't hear it mentioned enough, is the Gold Glover at first base the last 3 years was Rizzo, and last year's Gold Glove in the outfield was Gallo. Everyone loves to talk about the Yankees lineup. Of course, I opened the show talking about two lefties entering the Yankees lineup, but your defense massively improved with these two out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing I've been complaining about with the Yankees too. Throughout most of the season, if you'll notice, there have been a lot of errors. And I'm not just talking like fielding errors, just a lot of errors in general, whether it be on the bases and whether it be fielding. Again, stability. That's the key word and why I'm totally okay with the Yankees getting a Joey Gallo and an Anthony Rizzo. And I really hope that the improved fielding can help them down the stretch. Now, whether they can catch the Red Sox or the Rays, that's to be determined. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be this year, but I think those moves definitely are going to help just as much next year as the rest of this season.
So I joined your podcast before the Red Sox played the Yankees, the 3-game series. Sox took 3 of 1. I think that was in Fenway, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And one thing you and I were talking about was, I feel like there's been an issue in New York that the team still yet hasn't resolved, and I don't know if they resolved it after this deadline. It's getting that high contact, high on base. Yes, Joey Gallo takes a lot of walks, so he is someone that's going to improve the overall on base. But you guys didn't get that like Adam Frazier, Whit Merrifield, even though I didn't think you were going to go with someone that good, even like a Tommy La Stella level type player to get on base. Does it concern you that the Yankees still don't have that in their lineup pretty technically?
Yes, it does, because over the past few years, one of the many things that's been a problem for the Yankees is not hitting with runners in scoring position, and I think that probably contributes to this lineup as well, because if you look at the Yankees and the way they're constructed, they love to rely on the home run, and you've seen how many times in the past that can be a very big problem for the Yankees. So while it does improve the Yankees lineup somewhat, I'm not going to say that everything about the Yankees is fixed. And to any Yankee fan who's watching, as much as I love that this team has improved, don't go planning the parade down the Canyon of Heroes just yet.
Well, hopefully my Red Sox can plan a parade because they're sitting in first place. They made a couple moves at the deadline, adding power hitter Kyle Schwarber, who is currently injured, as well as 2 relief pitchers. I'll just start here real quick. I think the Red Sox needed a true first baseman. That's why I think Anthony Rizzo was a perfect option. Of course, he's now playing with the New York Yankees. Kyle Schwarber's primarily an outfielder, so I'm still yet to be seen what his role's truly going to be, but the power is really has 25 home runs for the first 70 or so games this season. Hank, looking at the Red Sox from your position, they didn't really need to make a huge splash. I'm not at all surprised they didn't go after a starter with Sale coming back, but what do you think of the moves Chaim Bloom made here at the trade deadline?
I think Kyle Schwarber is an underrated move because you get that bat in the lineup. It makes your lineup even more potent, and you look at that swing and you look at Fenway Park, I think it's really a move that totally makes sense. And while personally I thought they could have gone after maybe another pitcher too, Sale, from what I understand, has been looking really good in his rehab start. So hopefully for your sake, he can make the rotation more stable down the stretch. But getting relief pitchers, I think that definitely made sense. You can never have too much of a good bullpen, and I think the Red Sox really want to ensure that they have a chance to win the division come October.
Yeah, I mean, they added Hansel Robles, who had some closer responsibilities this year while with the Minnesota Twins. It adds to that depth there in the 8th and 9th inning with Adam Ottavino and Matt Barnes. Does take a little bit of pressure off of Barnes, as we do have another arm there in the back of the bullpen who has experience closing games. They also added Austin Davis, who doesn't have the best statistics. He also played for the Pirates, so not many pitchers outside of Rodriguez in that bullpen, very successful. It required Michael Chavis, who was a big name in the Red Sox system for it seemed like an extremely long time. Now he's back with Ben Cherington, so we'll see how Davis can adjust to Boston. Hopefully this is some Chaim Bloom steal that no one expected. Like we've already seen him do. You know, Garrett Whitlock was a Rule 5 pick with the Yankees, comes to Boston, has really looked like a strong relief pitcher. So hopefully Chaim can find something here with Austin Davis on this Red Sox team. But the Red Sox, you know, they didn't need a bat, but I'm not surprised they went after a bat. Schwarber is definitely a massive upgrade once he's healthy, and the bullpen's better with those 2 arms. My one concern with the Red Sox, though, is Erod and Perez do not look very good. And Richards has obviously not looked like the same pitcher since Spider Tech's gone away, but you know, you got to like Eovaldi right now, Sale, Houck when he eventually comes back. I think the Red Sox will be okay, but they have a team catching up to them in the division in the Rays. We'll get to the Rays in a second, Hank, because we have to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays right now.
Oh, gosh.
They needed a young, controllable pitcher, and you can argue that they got the best option of the available pitchers here with the control on them here on the trade market.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been saying the Blue Jays have needed for a while is another pitcher, and I think Jose Barrios should really help them down the stretch. And, you know, I know we've been talking about Boston and Tampa Bay being like who's going to win the division. Don't be surprised if Toronto makes a really big push for it, because
they're far back, though.
They are far back, but
it's a tough road.
They are, but again, what I'm trying to say is you can't predict baseball. Toronto had a good team. There's a reason why I had Toronto being a threat at the beginning of the season to begin with. Like, Vlad Guerrero is absolutely mashing, and no one's really even talking about how good Bo Bichette is. He's one of the more underrated names in that lineup, so I think they can make a good run for it. I don't think it might be too late for them to finish in first place, but at the very least, I can see Toronto making noise in the second half for sure.
I had much higher expectations for this Toronto team going into the season, much higher.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you know, when they play in multiple ballparks, you have inconsistency pitching wise, that's what happens. But the reason why I think I'm still not sold on them making that huge of a push. I think their schedule is tough. There's a lot of AL East matchups here. And, you know, it's weird because the Red Sox have had games where they've destroyed the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays have had games where they've destroyed the Red Sox. You don't really know what you're getting there every time you face them, but you play them in a playoff series. Ryu, Barrios, Ray, even though I don't love Ray, he's having a very good season. That could get you through a series. Because for a while I was saying, okay, Ryu, okay, legit. Ray, not the best. And then what, are you going to bet on, you know, one of your young kids, maybe go a bullpen game? I'm sorry, but that's not going to cut it against some of these teams in the American League. I think Toronto did a phenomenal job. And don't forget, Hank, they also added Brad Hand, a team that needed additional depth in the back of the bullpen.
Oh, yes, that's another huge acquisition. So I like I said, I think Toronto, here's the thing. You mentioned the divisions teams being really tough, like down the stretch. Those games can really go any way. Toronto has that familiarity with the other teams. Let's not forget about that. But with that being said, I just don't know. I think they may be a little too far behind to like win the division outright. But like you said, Ryu and Barrios and Robbie Ray, you have good options if for some reason you're stuck in that 1-game playoff. So I do think they're in better shape. And hey, even if they're not this year, like we already know the Blue Jays were slowly building themselves up to be a contender anyways. They're going to be a real threat next year for sure.
Yeah, you definitely want to sleep on them. Barrios, again, it's not just a 1-year rental. He's someone you're going to see in Toronto next year. And if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm making sure I pay him to make sure he stays
They're gonna
in Toronto for a very long time. Final team here is the Tampa Bay Rays. We've seen a little bit of a preview of this lineup since Cruz has been added to it, but they were looking for that difference maker offensively. They added that. What do you think of Nelson Cruz here? I like to say the middle of the order. He's hit second, I believe, yesterday, but one of those top 4 in Tampa is going to make some real damage.
I think it's another solid bat to add to what's already a pretty decent lineup. It's not a lineup that relies on like the home run primarily, but it's nice to have a big bopper in there to kind of mix it up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the weird thing about the Rays is they needed the bat. They got the bat. They spent a little money to get him, but when you can get someone with make that big of an impact like Nelson Cruz, you might as well go after it. But they're a team that lost Tyler Glass now. They needed the depth both in the rotation and in the bullpen. And they had Rich Hill, who at times has looked very solid this year in Tampa. They traded him to the New York Mets. Diego Castillo was a bullpen piece who was traded to the Seattle Mariners after the Mariners made a surprise trade with a team in their own division. I know we're going to stick with the AL East here, but Tampa's always been known for making very, very, very strange moves. And these two here, in my opinion, Hank, absolutely make no sense to me, especially the one with Diego Castillo.
Yeah, I don't get that either. He was one of their key pieces of the bullpen. And what really surprised me was why'd they trade Rich Hill? Like you lost Glass. No, you need more pitching. That could very well come back to haunt them come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they made a trade close to the deadline to make up for those losses. I know they had some trades previously when they sent Willy Adames. They got a couple arms from the Brewers. The Rays, you'll find something. They have a pretty deep system in regards to pitching, but the Rays are a team that loves to make those weird moves, and everyone just kind of throws their arms up. I mean, I threw my arms up when they traded Blake Snell, and he hasn't looked like the same pitcher in year 1 with the San Diego Padres. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because they're only a half a game behind the Red Sox. It looks like, the two teams that have a chance to win this division here, Hank, is the Boston Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, don't fully count out the Yankees in Toronto. I mean, Yankees 7.5, Toronto 8.5. I think the chances of them getting it is extremely slim, but they are mathematically in it. Hank, after you see the moves the Red Sox made, of course, health needs to be on their side a little bit down the road, and some of the moves Tampa made, who do you think has the best chance to win the American League East after this trade deadline?
This is a really tough one for me because it's really a coin flip between the Red Sox and the Rays if I really had to make a full assessment of it. As much as I'd like to say the Rays I'm not saying this for the reason that you might be thinking I am. It's more because the Rays seem to surprise you a lot with every move they made. And oftentimes, or more often than not, it's worked out for them. With that being said, I just don't know if the Rays have quite enough pitching that can really help them. Their lineup's pretty solid. I'm really excited to see what Wander Franco does. I think Nelson Cruz is obviously going to be a really good addition for them come the stretch. But unfortunately, well, for myself, not for you, obviously, I think it's probably going to be the Red Sox because what if Chris Sale is as good as he was before the injury? Then they're going to be in really good shape. We already know that lineup is good and just got better with Kyle Schwarber. If I really had to pick, I think the Red Sox, but just barely, are the favorites.
Well, if the Red Sox are the favorites, that means your Yankees have to go through the wild card if they want a chance to make the playoffs this year. Let's look at the wild card standings right now in the American League. It's currently led by the Tampa Bay Rays, who have a pretty decent lead, 3.5 games over the Oakland Athletics, who have the second wild card spot, followed by Seattle, New York, and Toronto. Seattle's 2.5 back, New York's 3.5 back, and Toronto's 4.5 back. I think you and I can both agree Cleveland doesn't really have much of a chance here. Same with the Angels. I think it's really those 5 teams for those 2 spots. Maybe Red Sox jump back in depending on who takes that spot in the AL East. But Oakland made some moves, got rid of one of their young starters for Starling Marte. Seattle made a weird trade, like I mentioned before, with their division rival, getting rid of their closer, as well as some other pieces. Seattle still looks pretty strong. It's been very good in the last couple months. New York and Toronto, we've already talked about. How do you see this wild card race here setting up after you watch this trade deadline?
It's going to be really interesting, but I feel like you're going to have 3 AL East teams in the playoffs, like, come October.
So you don't think they beat each other up?
I do think they probably will, but at the end of the day, I think based on, like, on paper, I wouldn't be shocked if Oakland's in it, like, at the very end, but I just have this gut feeling that it's going to be 3 AL East teams in the playoffs. It's just such a strong division, and I think a lot of the teams in the AL East really got better. I don't see how it's not going to be.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle has impressed me a lot lately. I will admit I do think they've been one of the more impressive teams here. I'm stunned they made that trade, giving Kendall Graveman to a division rival, especially without paying that division tax. I don't really think they got that much in return. But, you know, when you look at the teams around them, I think the one that's possibly going to fall off due to just inexperience is the Seattle Mariners. Good for them. I still think they're a year or 2 away. I don't think they made enough moves at the deadline. Their team's pissed with the front office. You know, there's very little wiggle room. If one team's going to have just an awful week, I do think that'll be Seattle towards the end of the season. Oakland is a second half team. I expect it to get better. I think they got rid of way too much for Starling Marte, but I do think Starling Marte is going to make a massive difference here on the top of the order. Going to help guys like Olsen, help guys like Chapman. The A's aren't stupid. They know they're not going to extend both of them. Sure. This is really their last chance to win, because I think they have 2 more years or so left on their contract. You might as well try and win now. Luzardo's a big loss, but I think Oakland should be interesting. So really, in my opinion, I think it's going to go either Boston or Tampa at 1, Oakland, New York, Toronto. Am I crazy to think? I mean, if Barrios is as good as Barrios can be, Toronto's going to move up.
Yeah.
Oakland, I'm going to go out on a limb here. This might sound a little bold, but between the A's, the Yankees, and Toronto being only 4.5 back, am I crazy to think Toronto has a real chance to make a run here?
Not really, because like I said, they still have that insane lineup. Their pitching just improved, and you know, you look at what they did last year. They got at least a little taste of the playoffs, so you know they're probably going to have that sense of hunger and urgency come the second half of the season. And if Vlad Guerrero can keep up that his MVP pace, then I don't see why they can't like compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah. So, I mean, the wild card race is going to be exciting here in the American League. This trade deadline made Major League Baseball exciting. So every team in the American League East made at least one pretty major move to make an exciting run here in the second half of the season. Just to remind you, the Red Sox are in first place with a 0.5-game lead over the Tampa Bay Rays. New York sits in third with a 7.5 game, sitting 7.5 games behind the Red Sox. Toronto 8.5 games back, all in the AL East. So, Pank, best of luck to your New York Yankees in this second half. For your sake, hopefully they can make a wild card run. Hopefully my Sox remain at the top of the division. It's going to be one hell of a ride here. You're going to want to be glued to your TV screen every time these two teams take the field. Hank, thank you so much for joining me. Before I let you go, how can our listeners keep in touch with you on social media? Follow where you can link and listen to your podcast. Give it all right here, man.
All right. So you can follow us at my show is Hidden for the Cycle. You can follow us at Review and Preview Sports. We always go live on Facebook at 7, usually on Thursdays. And in addition, you could also follow us on Spotify and anywhere you can find your playlists. And not to mention, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Review and Preview Sports. You'll see a lot of good highlights from my episodes there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Hank, for joining me. And we're going to talk some baseball hopefully very soon. Maybe Red Sox and Yankees in the playoffs. That'd be pretty cool. So hopefully for your sake, the Yankees can make a run here. Hopefully for my sake, the Yankees disappear and are nowhere near the playoffs. That's going to be it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside Hank and Indictor. What do you think of the American League East after the 2021 MLB Trade Deadline? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.